Hello, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in. We're about to get started here. Like last week, we are going to, and I think we'll be doing that this whole season. We'll do our intro since we do adapt this for our podcast audience as well. So we'll do that. Once again, like last week as well, we will have two segments for questions. So feel free to throw questions into the chat as we go. Also, feel free to help each other and answer questions in the chat. That's totally fine. But we'll have one about midway through the show to take questions, and then we'll have one at the end of the show to take questions as well. And we'll answer them from there. But we appreciate everybody tuning in there. So with that said, I think we're going to launch into it then.
Sounds good.
All right. Welcome to Parks and Cons Companion Podcast and live show to the parksandcons.com website and YouTube channel. We discuss cons, theme parks, collecting, and other fun stuff. It is June 13, 2024. I'm your host, Sean. I am here with Carmel.
Hello there.
Parks and Cons Round Spot Podcast. We're taking you to the heart of the action of the best conventions and themed entertainment events around. Today we are recording at the San Diego Convention Center area here. We're in the Bayfront Park. I forgot for a second our whole little intro there.
Which is weird since we're like 500, almost 600 episodes 800 episodes into the podcast.
Yeah, it just doesn't always stick there. But that said, we are here to talk Comic-Con. Once again, this is the second show of the season. So we are out here at Bayfront Park once again. And so for those of you that are going to be tuning in live, welcome. If you're watching on the playback, welcome as well. And then, of course, our podcast listeners that this will be posted later on. Welcome to all of you, and we should have a good time again talking San Diego. This is the second week, as I said, so it means things are a little thinner in terms of like we're not seeing big wraps up on hotels yet or builds or things like that. But there were a few interesting things, kind of just some structural changes and things like that. Downtown MTS has had some wraps. We'll talk about some of the news this week. Once again, thanks to our friends over at the SDCC unofficial blog, the U blog, as they aggregate all this news, as they come up with all sorts of stuff. So we'll highlight some of their things that they've been highlighting this week as well. And then we'll have some of our Comic-Con tips and all of that. So to start out our day in San Diego, we came down. The big goal of the day, obviously there's a variety of goals, actually, doing this live show being one of them. But one was also to see some of the wraps on the trolleys last week. If you listened in, you know that we saw the Elsbeth, just the Paramount Plus ones from a very far distance, very kind of grainy, 100 miles away type of a view. But we thought maybe we'd see a little bit of this today. And we have seen a little bit, and we'll talk about that. But our first stop was Now or Never Comics. It's a spot that we stop throughout the season, January through December. It's always like Comic-Con there at Now or Never. And we checked in. They are having a preview night event coming up. So they'll have, I think, a more official announcement coming up in the weeks ahead. But if you are in San Diego for preview night of Comic-Con, they're going to be doing a launch party for the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles title that's being written by the incredible Jason Aaron. I know he's one of my favorite comic writers. They're going to be having pizza, total Ninja Turtle style. And they have a few other things going on for Comic-Con season. So we talked a little bit with them. We'll talk more about Now or Never later on in the show as well, but it's always a nice stop any time of year, but even, I guess, more so as we get into Comic-Con season, because it's like, it's one thing we know coming down here that will get that Comic-Con fix very visibly.
Yeah, definitely. And I think they announced it on their socials. So if you want some more information, they do have information about their launch party on preview night. So take a look there.
Yeah, there wasn't actually, that was back on May 22nd, and there wasn't much there, just that they were having it, but I'm sure, more to come. But yeah, so that was a fun first stop there. Then we did make our way to the, our parking over there on, 6th and J or something like that?
6th and K, which is across the street from the Omni and from the Hard Rock. It is where we prefer to park when we're on these types of visits. The parking's very reasonable during the day. And then if it's a game day, though, with the Padres, and the prices are all kind of wonky. But if it's just kind of a normal day, it's a very convenient place to park. And so we like to park there. I want to say it's like $1 an hour or something like that. It's very reasonable. So we do try to go there whenever we can.
Yep. And we walked right out the parking structure there and made our way over to the MTS area where we have I'm very, very right off the top there, saw the Paramount Plus. In fact, we saw the Paramount Plus wraps multiple times today, quite a few times. We saw Ghosts, we saw Tracker, and we also saw Elsbeth. Yeah. So multiple times, which was nice. And, this time of year, it's like, for us at least, it's like if you see them once in a day, it's kind of like, oh, cool, we saw them. We don't see a lot of them yet, but to see them like, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 times kind of zipping by, maybe even more than that, was really cool there. And so we'll continue to kind of find those things and then send them over, and you follow along again with the blog. And I guess for Tracker, we're kind of, they need a little bit better picture of that, so we're able to find that as well. But no Snowpiercer. There'll be more on Snowpiercer in a minute, but no Snowpiercer as of that time, just a lot of that. And then we did stop in. So one of the things we're working on this time around, because now each time that we come down to San Diego, we'll be working on a little bit longer form video as well, maybe, and there'll be some lives in there additionally. But we'll do our outside Comic-Con video, we'll do our convention center video, etc. But this time a new one that we're working on is quick eats around the San Diego Convention Center. So we started putting together a video with a few different spots, and the goal basically is where can you eat more quickly. And so, for example, as we're here next to the Bayfront, there's a spot we talk about in the video that we got like a really good meal like in 30 minutes there last year when we had an appointment at FX, right where we're recording now, and had a very small amount of time there. So anyway, that video we're putting on together, but our first stop for that was Baja Rick's, which we've covered a little bit in the past in our visits down here. But we did share a burger there to do a little bit of video of that. We'll try in the video to show a little bit of food, whether it be still shots from past meals there, or if it's video from a more recent video spot. Baja Rick's, so I mean, it's good food. Like the burger, to me, the burger is like perfect as long as we share it. It's pretty massive overall, but it's a good burger overall. But it ended up being what, it was $20 for the burger, and then after tip and stuff, it ended up being $25.
Yeah, and we shared a drink, so it's definitely not a cheap eats video, but it's a quick eats. And so yeah, the burger is tasty. There's a lot on it. They don't seem to have kind of a standard basic burger. So the burger has like, they have their special sauce. It has bacon, tomatoes, pickles, and stuff. And so it's quite shareable. It's way too much for me to have on my own, and I think even for you to have on your own. And so, and then comes with fries. But yeah, it's $20, so it's not cheap, definitely, but it is tasty and shareable. And then, yeah, with one drink and tip, yeah, it was about $25. So
yeah. Yeah, and a few other things we will do. Last year, people seem to really like we did a live on 5th Street. I think it was 5th and 6th, or 5th and 7th, or some 6th and 7th. But we'll do one of those very well, because there are some changes down there. I mean, Toscano has been dark. Has it been since 2020 now? It's been dark for many years. It's one of those spots that's like, you know, it's right across from Spaghetti Factory. So last year, it's like, well, for sure, someone's going to buy that spot out, and it's going to be used during San Diego Comic-Con, and it wasn't. But we did see people working on it today. So maybe it will be in play. Rockin' Baja has moved a few doors down. Hasta Mañana Cantina has opened in its place. So there is some kind of moving around down there. You know, also something we didn't talk about last time, there's a lot of construction actually kind of behind us as we're recording, really in front of the Bayfront there. Where
on Harbor.
Yeah, where the signals are even down. I mean, I'm sure it'll be working for Comic-Con. I'm guessing that's all part of what, you know, they're working on right now. But it is just, as we talked about last week, there is a lot of that work right now of infrastructure that's kind of pulling things together to get things all nice and shiny for Comic-Con. And so we'll see what opens, you know, and what doesn't. I mean, every year there's some things that I know were like positive as we come across them in May or June. Like, oh, for sure they're getting ready. And today that was kind of Toscano, like they're doing major work in there. There's cabinetry going in. There's like, looks like a bar being rebuilt in there. And it's like, oh, that thing's going to open up in the next month. And it very well couldn't. You know, Buca de Beppo is another one this year. Arcade Monsters we talked about last week. So we'll see, and we'll follow along with those. But we will have a video, not of those things up this time. This is going to be just the quick eats that we know are around. They're not restaurants. They're more things that, at least in our experience, are usually a little faster and incidentally, obviously, a little bit cheaper oftentimes for those spots too. And then next year, I mean, we'll talk about, we do have some plans for some video this for next year for Comic-Con 2025, where we maybe start a little earlier, like in April, putting some of these things out that are a little bit more about some of the prep stuff and things like that. So more to come on that.
Yeah, it was kind of cool to see Hasta Mañana open, because it wasn't open when we were here last week. And so I went and I took a photo of the menu and stuff, which I didn't have a chance to actually look at. So I need to do that, but it looks nice enough. And that location, the signage and stuff looks nice, but yeah, it was kind of cool to see something open that wasn't there last week. And so I asked her, I'm like, so you guys just opened and stuff, right? And she's like, yeah, like last week. I'm like, okay. So yeah, it was, we must just miss by a day or something, them opening. So yeah, that may be something that we give a try at some point soon.
Yeah, and there's some big shows coming up. I mean, Esri again is before Comic-Con this year, so I think this is like right now is the time. Ideally, a lot of these places are going to open to get their sea legs so that they're able to handle the big crowds as they come. So,
well, and obviously, it's not just Comic-Con. They have Esri right before, and then TwitchCon and stuff, and those are also very big shows. So. Yeah, it'd be nice if they get open ahead of time and then are nice and rehearsed for when Comic-Con when we come in. So
we made our way around the Marriott, the backside. We went over by Rady Shell. We went to the back of the convention center, of course. We went over here to the Bayfront, looking around. Not a lot to report from any of those spots. Some of them will show up on our Quick Eats video as well, as that comes. But then we, ironically, then as we're setting up the live, I was doing some video, and you were live. Finally saw the Snowpiercer trolley from a very far distance. So we don't have good photo of it, but we'll see if we can find it again. But so Snowpiercer joined. So currently then there are 4 different themes, you know, Paramount Plus being the big overarching there with the 3, but you have Ghost, Elsbeth, Tracker, and now Snowpiercer joining the lineup that you might see whipping around the area, whether you're out here now or, you know, when you come out here for Comic-Con.
Yeah, that was kind of frustrating because we've been keeping an eye out for the trolleys. And so right where we're at, I had just put the blanket down. Sean was in the hotel doing that video. And then I looked back and right over there, I see a trolley coming. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't think that's the standard red. And then I'm looking closer. I'm like, darn it. It was Snowpiercer. And there was like no way I was going to make it from here all the way to the trolley stand in time. So, we're going to try to get that later. But I did see it from a distance, and I took a photo from a distance. So it's like there's a person in the photo and trees and stuff, but I can see it in the background. It's definitely Snowpiercer. So it's out and about, and hopefully we'll catch it a little later.
Yeah.
So follow us on social to see that if we find it.
Yeah, hopefully we will. Hopefully we will. So, okay, with that said, let's move to the next segment, which is the big news of the week. And there's quite a few things this week, actually, that caught my interest. Again, as I said, the U-Blog gathers up so many different article stories. They had a great show last night. If you didn't get to catch them, they have it on YouTube, and they do the podcast version about Maya Gates. Really enjoyed it. So all of her history with San Diego Comic-Con. If you're just a Comic-Con fan of the history of the show, of kind of the infrastructure of, you know, memories of the show, it was a really great episode all the way around. But also they have their news, and they shared some great slides and things like that. But a few things from the week that have caught my attention. Jada Toys has announced all of their stuff, and it's interesting because I feel like you and I see a lot of Jada Toys. Usually we see them at Monsterpalooza, then we see them at Anime Expo, then we see them at San Diego, then we see them at LA Comic-Con. I feel like that's a normal year. This year they weren't at Monsterpalooza, but I'm imagining we will see them next week at Anime Expo, and it's kind of neat because they do different reveals at those booths, but they do some really fun stuff with the cars, with the monsters, with all sorts of different things there. But this time around, their announcements, they've got the 2 Street Fighter ones with the Chun-Li pink and the Violent Ken variant, and then the glow-in-the-dark Chester Cheetah. So those kind of mascots they do. Obviously, Funko is really famous for all their mascot work. I know for myself, being a kid, you know, growing up, and you wished you could get like a Chester Cheetah type figure or something like that, or the cereal monsters or things like that. So it's really fun to see what Jada does with some of these. And so they have some exclusives coming up there that are fun. If you've not ever checked out Jada and you do go to any show where they're at, I highly suggest checking out their booth because they do some really great work, and it's really unique. The die cast kind of cars, and now the figures as they've moved into those size, there's a heft to them, and they're just a really nice quality toy. And I'll admit we haven't bought any, you know, so it's always like of a temptation, but there's some really cool stuff they do. And I gotta say that in this case, the Chester Cheetah, it's just such a fun kind of character, and seeing that glow in the dark version was really fun. So that was all announced this week. I'm kind of surprised so early in terms of like wrapping up their announcements. It's obviously, this is the season where the announcements are coming up. To have a company that's kind of like, here's everything, is interesting. But they do have a lot more coming up with some of these other shows as well, where we find every show they go to, usually there's reveals there. So we'll be at Anime Expo in a couple weeks, and of course we will share anything from there. Then NECA, we talked last week about their pre-sale being June 26th to 28th, but they did announce some figures this week. There's the Ultimate Feral Cameo Reveal Predator set, but the 2 that really caught my attention and I really like, and those are probably the first 2 of like the exclusives that really interest me, is the Flash Gordon. It's from the 80s movie. with the Wood Beast Challenge, which as a kid was like such a scary thing when they reach their hand into the tree and like there's going to be this, you know, killer inside of one of them, and it's basically like playing Russian roulette. So to have that in action figure form here in the year 2024 looks really, really cool, and that definitely caught my attention. And then the other one was the Nosferatu glow in the dark, that also for old school toy fans, it has kind of the retro hardback that the Universal Monsters figures used to have, the 3 3/4 inch in the 80s there. So that looks really cool as well. So I don't know, last year I think we bought Alf as a pre-sale, and then it had shipped, but then you're at the show, and eventually NECA doesn't have a line. You know, it seems like after maybe the Turtles go, they don't have a line, and then it's like, but I want it in hand. So like last year I think it was the Mummy that we got there. So I was kind of debating with these two, because I kind of think both of these will be available at the show without a big fight. So I don't know if we will end up doing pre-sale or not, but I do like what they're doing there. NECA does some really great stuff, and I thought both of those were really very interesting.
Cool. Yeah, and I don't really buy toys, and exclusives aren't so much my thing, so we'll see what we hunt for and how we hunt them. I totally don't mind waiting in the line so for the exclusives, or, you know, that whole thing. But as far as like being excited to buy them, that's not really my thing, but I'm totally cool with doing the effort to get them.
Well, I mean, the first time, this goes back to, what was it, 2011 Tron Legacy? I think it was 2011, but I think that was like the first like big exclusive we ever like bought, which was the massive chaos around the Tron Legacy booth for the arcade little game type. It was like an arcade figure, or an arcade case looking set with the figure inside, and you like went into the swirling thing of madness, and I'm like, we can't get exclusives at Comic-Con. That's not a thing. That's not a thing for people like us. And you came out of it with this. It was one per person. You came out with it, and we still have that thing. It's one of my favorite exclusives ever. So the things have changed a lot. I'm not a fan of all the pre-sale stuff. I'm not a fan of all the shipping. Part of the fun of Comic-Con to me was the like strategizing and getting in line and doing all those things, but it is what it is. The world changes, and so it's fine. There's time for other things in those. Not having Hasbro really sell at the show anymore frees up a lot of time as well. Not having Lego do what they used to do. So it's interesting. I'm not a fan of those things, and they're things that I hope come back to a little more normalcy. But it is what it is for now, and I'm excited about at least those two things that NECA had there. The other announcement that really exciting one, I think maybe the most exciting announcement of the week to me, was the blog shared last night that Dragon Ball's returning with their offsite, that they're coming back to the Marriott Marina. That's always fun to watch that come together. It's interesting because it feels like we always get a preview of what they're doing at Anime Expo, because they'll use some of the same statues or figures, and then they'll come here and do it. I feel like they do it up bigger here, even though Anime Expo is such a massive show, but it feels like what they do with that, having the booth and the outside area there, it just really extends. But I love that spot back there, kind of near Seaport Village, behind the Marriott in the marina there. They'll be back on the floor as well, so it sounds like, you know, we can expect a big presence from Dragon Ball once again.
Yeah, and it's I love being able to see as they're building it, and as we're roaming around and seeing the big statues come, and at first they're like covered, and then they start to uncover them and stuff. But then in the end, I don't think or at least I haven't ever actually gone to the experience the actual activation, because by the time things get going, it's like busy and stuff, and I don't think I've actually experienced it. But it is fun to see it get built and the massive statues and stuff. So that's always, and I feel like that doesn't really happen until like pretty close to Comic-Con. It's like the couple days before
preview night, yeah.
But when we start to actually see statues and stuff, it's like right up against it and stuff, and so that's always fun to go over there and see that those things are being put in place and stuff. Yeah,
and I've gone into it a couple of times, and I like that it's very high capacity, so that's really nice too, relatively speaking to anything at Comic-Con. So it's a neat one to see there. An important thing just to remember, if you're maybe haven't listened to as much of our stuff over the last few months in terms of the convention world. I mean, we've seen it really over the last few years. Anime has exploded, manga has exploded, and those brands, there's a reason that we're seeing, more of, let's say, Bandai at conventions and taking over spaces from places like DC or stuff like that. Like, there's been a real growth of all things anime and manga, and so it's part of the reason I think, like, Anime Expo, when we go there, they've got all the big booths. No one has left that show since 2020. There hasn't been things like we've seen in San Diego with like Sideshow saying, well, I'm going to take my ball and go home type of thing. Is in the anime manga world, things have just grown, and I feel like there's more money than ever there, and they've still got massive, a massive LA Convention Center filled with carpet and all of that, and the big 2-story booths and things like that. So Dragon Ball kind of leading into that. I'm sure we'll see Viz again with a big booth, and I think that's just going to be kind of a trend for a while at San Diego, included is the continued expansion of the anime manga, as long as it's booming here. I always say every time we go to Disneyland, I'm like, I wonder, and I'm sure Disney knows this because they do some of that, but I wonder if like the biggest threat to like all their Marvel stuff feels like it's way more all the anime. It's My Hero Academia more so than like DC or things like that, because everywhere we look around there, you're just seeing anime t-shirts and all of those types of properties. And it's fun, like you and I got into that very late in life, really only over the last 5 to 10 years ourselves. And it's like My Hero Academia is such a great show, and there's just so many things in that world that I enjoy, including Dragon Ball, of course, One Punch Man, and a bunch of others there. So and then on the panel side, I thought these were great because these are those kind of Hall H type panels there that really will they draw big crowds. Of course, they don't draw big crowds in the same way that something like a Marvel or a DC or a Fox might, but having the Collider panels returning, which they were kind of like the big panel of WonderCon really recently, with what they did on directors on directing, but they have producers on producing and then directors on directing. So the producers on producing, it's producers behind Transformers, Strange New Worlds, and Barbarian. Loved Strange New Worlds, and so curious about that one. Directors on directing, Antoine Fuqua and Roland Emmerich. And so you've got Independence Day, Equalizer, the new Michael Jackson biopic, which we visited that Toys R Us that they're building out there as a facade and stuff for the shoot there. But it's exciting to kind of see those two panels coming together, because that does have that Hollywood feel. Now, of course, it's going to feel much more comforting when we hear whatever Studio X is going to be doing their panel, because after a year of not having that kind of side of things, it's going to be really interesting to see what we see in those panel rooms. But this was nice to be so early in June and have the Collider panels, and to know, unlike WonderCon, we don't think that's going to be the only big panels in Hall H or bigger panels in Hall H. So
yeah, and the WonderCon one was quite enjoyable. I don't think I'd ever experienced that particular panel or that series of panels, and so having the it was a directors, right?
Yeah, directors on
for Apes and Abigail and Fall Guy was really cool, and gave like extra perspective and stuff on the movies as they came out. And so as we were watching them, it's like I appreciated the movies in a even more in a different way, having gone to that panel. So that was a lot of fun.
Definitely. All right. So now we will go to some questions there. I'm not sure if there were questions there, if everybody addressed their questions already in there. Thanks. We see people jumping in the chat and answering questions as well. So we always appreciate that.
Yeah. So one of the questions was about Lolita still from Cars 1223, asking if what we place Lolita's, which is Vega Cafe.
We put a video up last week on our channel.
Yeah, asking if they serve beer. And I believe I saw the answer. Big Red Journey said yes, they still have beer on tap and cans. And yeah, I believe that's what we experienced as well. And then let's see. Alyssa Wallace pointed out that she's going to use her Eats and Outside SDCC vids to prepare her friends for TwitchCon in September, which thank you. Let's see. We too are trying to get
cosplay there. We met Justin at Monster Palooza. Thank you very much. It's been cool to check out all your cosplay stuff. So thank you, Justin, for all the support.
And then Kama Rocks, if that's how you pronounce that, is do we know anything about Funko Fun Days parties that's going on during SDCC?
So they did announce the dates. It's 2 days this year. Unlike the 1 day, it's also moving back to the Manchester Hyatt versus last year. The Rady Shell was a difference. We've gone the last several years. Really always enjoy seeing what they do. Funko puts on just a crazy party. I know it was even a crazier party, maybe a decade ago before we started attending, but they do some really interesting stuff there. And I'm always very curious about it. And so this year it's going to be 2 nights. So that's different for sure. I believe believe it's the Friday and Saturday night, but no announcement yet on tickets for the general public. I know over on the boards, they've already, they're doing their thing there for like the fanatics and all of that. But on our end for like the regular old attendee sales, no announcement yet. I believe last year it was a pretty short notice on that. I've been watching like every day that it's like, hey, today tickets go on sale between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. or whatever. And so I would love if it wasn't a long 4-hour window again of just refreshing and monitoring that. And if they do the 4-hour window, I always hope that it'd be like in the first 1 hour or something like that, because it just gets so tedious refreshing and it feels like it's always in that last hour. But yeah, we are watching for that just as well. And so I'm sure we're going to have info on that very soon. In fact, honestly, I'd be surprised if we don't know by the time we do our episode next week. So we'll see.
And then Becca Nah said she's hoping for Paramount Plus Lodge news soon and fandom.
Yep.
Agreed. Let's see. Anyone hear anything?
Big Red Journey.
Yes. Anyone hear anything about Peanuts at SDCC? Anything regarding exclusive merch, etc.?
No, but I know the new Camp Snoopy show is, what is it, debuting? Is it this week on Apple? Which is interesting, and I'm guessing they'll maybe lean into that at San Diego. They've obviously had a pretty big presence there. At Knott's, Camp Snoopy opens. We'll talk about that later because it's going to change one of our live dates that we had scheduled for this month, but it's opening up there on the 27th. So I would imagine, though, a good presence again from them, but haven't heard anything yet.
And Love Pink Hello Kitty asked how the weather is down here, and Alyssa pointed out that it's cooler, and it is. It's in like mid 70s, so but obviously humid because it's San Diego and we're by the water. So definitely warmer than last week. Last week was nice because it was nice and overcast. We were just able to sit out in the grass, but this time we definitely wanted to get some shade because Sean was already burning just from our walking around. So nice, but warmer than last week. Do we know when the Geek Tiki Night at False Idol tickets go on sale?
I do not know the answer to that. We have not attended that before, so it's not quite as much on our radar there. So if anybody does know in the things, they can throw it in there. But otherwise, I haven't seen that part yet. So
I think, let's see.
Chad, thank you on the Parks and Contact. Carmel has there. Our friends Brad and Megan made us. So it took us 10 years of Parks and Cons to never make a hat. And we're always like, it'd be cool if we had a hat. And they finally made it, or they made it. We never got around to doing it ourselves. So thank you very much for that. So.
And then Pandora 576, do you think there will be any TV show previews on preview night like a few years ago?
I hope so. I don't know. I don't feel too confident in that because just these paradigms have shifted. You don't really have that same world anymore of, CW and those traditions. It's crazy because like everything, it's like Conan, for example. Conan was a tradition. Everybody loved Conan. It was like, every year what's going on with Conan, and then all of a sudden Conan's gone and you're like, well, will something replace it? And then just nothing does. It's because, specific marketing people grab onto something. So, I always wonder too, as we all age with things too, is there going to be somebody who like ends up at a marketing job at, I don't know, FX that's like, I used to love going to those Wednesday night preview, things that CW used to do, and now they're going to take over the Wednesday night slot or things like that. It's just, it's kind of sad with things when they go away. I mean, I used to love when also in the CW area, but when DC used to do, and I think it was only 2 or 3 years when they do their like late night, like Saturday night or whatever it was of DC TV stuff. And it was like, oh, this is fun. This is our new tradition. And then it's like, oh, it's gone. And obviously the pandemic erased things. I mean, I loved the tradition of carpet at the convention center, so I don't have a lot of faith in the things that have kind of disappeared. But we were just talking to our friends over at Now or Never today, because I know for a lot of us, it's like, this is the year things will be normal, ? Hopefully, maybe. And what does that mean? And what is the new normal? Because obviously it's not special edition. It's not a distanced San Diego Comic-Con or a mask required San Diego Comic-Con. It's not a strike impacted one, and so is this when some of these things return? But again, so much just depends on the various properties wanting to do things. So we will see. So.
And go ahead and add your questions, but I think we'll jump back to our, oh my gosh, I can think of the word, not itinerary.
Segments.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So next up then we will get to the preview just real quickly of some things coming up. And we do have a few programming notes. Carmel put together that infographic, which we're trying to do more of that. And it's been great as she's putting those things together to just like with the lives. Honestly, most years it's kind of like, well, where can we fit it in? And maybe a day early, we'd be like, hey, we're going to do one at 4 or 6 or 8 or whatever it would be. But this year, try to plan it. So she plotted out June, and we knew, and there's a disclaimer on that like in general for Parks and Cons, a lot of things just pop up. And so a couple things have popped up here. And so we do have some changes there. So in previewing things, our next live show then next week, it is on the 19th. But it's going to be a little later. It's not going to be the 4 o'clock slot. It's going to be the 5:30 slot, and it's for an exciting reason. I see Big Red Journeys is in our chat here, but very kindly working over at the San Diego Maritime Museum, and they have invited us out to come and record on the San Salvador. So we are going to be going out there to record next week, and we're really excited about that. We're also going to do just some video of that. In fact, one of the things we've wanted to start for a while, and we're going to, I think, do it with that spot there, is kind of the more and more it's become a common thing for people to expand their San Diego Comic-Con trips. You know, in the old days when we would come out on Monday, it's like we beat everybody by days. It felt like nobody felt like they were in town except for us. And now when we get in on Monday, it's like, wait, we're like getting here late because people got here on Saturday or Friday or Thursday before. So we want to have a series, and we'll lean more into it in 2025, hopefully, but of things like expanding your trip. So we are going to do some videos separate from our like live here also of the Maritime Museum, of the San Salvador, of all of that. Comic-Con attendees, even if you've not been to the Maritime Museum, will be familiar with the San Salvador because it is what the Voodoo Ranger uses. So when you see the big pirate ship, is what most people will call it, behind the convention center. So we're going to record from there, and we'll have the live, and we'll have that link up obviously in the week. But we're excited to come out there, and we really thank them for setting that all up. A couple interesting things just about the San Salvador that I did not know. It arrived at the port we now call San Diego in 1542, so that's really cool to be recording on that. It's the first recorded European vessel to sail along Southern California, and it's considered the founding ship of California. So it is like ridiculously exciting to record the version of this show on that ship next week. And so again, a little bit of a programming change there. We'll put it all out on social and update links and all of that, but big thanks to them, and we'll share more on that for over there. Also in previewing our Quick Eats video, as I said, will probably be going up tomorrow if everything goes okay with finishing up shooting today. So we'll have that on the channel this week. And then June 25th, so we originally were scheduled to do our next live after next week, was on the 27th. Now Camp Snoopy is opening at Knott's Berry Farm, so we have the media day there for the opening of the new land. So we'll be out here on the 25th instead. So we'll be moving that one up by a couple of days. So we'll share all that updated infographic and all of those things, but we did want to kind of put those out to have a couple amendments coming up on the horizon there.
Yeah, it's very difficult as Parks and Cons to like schedule anything. I think it frustrates some of our friends and families and stuff, because whenever we try to schedule things in advance, and people will be very considerate, like, in 2 months we're going to have this event, and it's like, okay, it's open now, and then as it approaches, it's like, oh no, something else has come up. And so yeah, if you're friends with us, if you ever try to schedule anything with us, just understand it's tough because things pop up, and the opening of a refurbished land at a theme park is kind of an important thing. So yeah, we have to shift the schedule around some.
Yeah, and so just in general, we have that San Diego Comic-Con 2024 playlist, which will be pulling all of the videos in there. And we have the most videos for prep scheduled that we've ever had before. So we'll see if we're able to keep up with that. We'll probably shift to doing 2 lives at one point as we get a little bit closer there, and there's a little more activity and stuff. So again, we'll update everything on social, but if you ever fall behind on anything, it'll all be there. We know a lot of people do listen or watch these things as Comic-Con traditions. At least that's what we hear. I think it's the most common thing we're told during San Diego Comic-Con is that it's kind of a Comic-Con tradition to tune in with us. And I know for us, it's a big deal as well, because it feels like it's the season. And we talked about that last week of kind of enjoying the full season outside of just the week of. Okay, next thing, quick little segment here on our 10th anniversary event. Again, we've seen several, actually, particularly this week, several, I know San Diego Comic-Con attendees have bought tickets, which we greatly appreciate. That event is at the end of the month. It's June 30th at the Knott's Berry Farm Hotel. We have major giveaways. Ticket sales conclude on Sunday, so Carmel put in the chat for those that are live. If you are interested, our homepage there's a link there. If you're not able to go and you're interested in still helping support this project, our first kind of big live event, it took us 10 years to do it. There's also a PayPal donation link there, and we really appreciate people that have taken advantage of that to help us out. We cannot thank you enough. There is swag there too that's going out to many of you that have done that so far. So very, very much thanks there. But real quick, want to touch on some of the sponsor announcements and announce our next one, which is a really great one because it ties into Comic-Con, and it's a Comic-Con tradition for us. So to run down what we've announced so far, Comic-Con Museum is donating 8 tickets that we'll be giving away to the museum. Toddland sent us a big box. There's like 12 shirts in there and all sorts of lots of other things and great stuff, Funko Pops, etc. Bob's Burgers, Family Guy, so many more things. Sweet Things San Diego, right behind us over here, donated a $100 gift card. So there's going to be some people eating good during Comic-Con that will win that at our event. Well, it's a $425 gift card, so yeah. Midsummer Scream, 2 pairs of gold bat passes. Probably not of interest to the people on this particular podcast because this year, unfortunately, it's heartbreaking for us. Midsummer Scream falls during San Diego Comic-Con, so we'll be missing Midsummer, unfortunately. But I know that's a huge deal to some fans. Creep IE Con, we love them. They're coming up in September. 2 weekend tickets. Our friends BB Create, who we see at a lot of conventions and is a Comic-Con tradition for many. They sent us a really awesome pins and sticker packs. They're working on some really cool exclusive stuff coming for San Diego as well. Nightmare Creators, they do personalized tombstones, and we actually picked those up today, that they're giving a gift card for $160 to do personalized like Halloween decorating and some bonus ones as well. WB Hollywood Studio Tours, 4 tickets for their Warner Brothers tours, which is a fantastic event. Creep It Real OC, 2 pairs of tickets as well for their Halloween festival coming up in September. And that's just what we've announced, and we'll announce today's sponsor. As we talked about earlier, Now or Never Comics, we just picked up from them. It's like a $100 gift pack of stuff. There's shirts, there's a $50 gift card in there, there's a couple trades, Nightwing, and do a power bomb and some stickers and stuff, and really, really great for Now or Never Comics. Like we said, they were like the hope of the world, I feel like, back in 2020 when like everything was shut down, and Aaron from Now or Never Comics was posting like improvements he was making to the shop as he couldn't be open. And it felt so good. I know to myself, it helped. I mean, we tried to do a lot of stuff in 2020 to give people like hope. And I know he gave me hope because he's like, I'm at the shop today organizing comics. And you're like, okay, cool. Because he thinks it's open. Things were so apocalyptic in 2020. So I feel like Now or Never has been such a great member of the San Diego business community and fan community. And they love San Diego Comic-Con. It's, of course, their biggest week of the year. They've done some really cool stuff there. They had the Harley Quinn stuff that they worked with WB a couple years back. As we said, this year doing some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle stuff, and we are so grateful to have them on as a sponsor. And so if you are coming to the event, might be one of the things that you want to enter into for the giveaways. Yeah, if you've already purchased tickets and you're planning on being there, yeah, it should be, even if you get bored listening to us talk because we're recording the live podcast, you should be quite possibly walking away with some really cool stuff. Like as Sean just read, is like some of those things I like couldn't imagine or wasn't at all expecting that we'd get those types of things donated so that we can give them away. So yeah, definitely exciting if you're attending. And if you're debating on attending, just come join us. Fun, hang out in person. We don't do those types of things very often. Every 10 years. Well, yeah, this one where we're actually like selling tickets to and stuff. I don't know, maybe 20 years we'll do that again. But yeah, come join us and hang out at the Knott's Hotel. There's food, live podcast recording, giveaways, photo ops. It should be fun. Yep. And again, thank you to all who have been supportive, whether it is through buying tickets or sharing it and encouraging others to buy tickets, or it's been through the PayPal donations, or it's joining our Patreon and being part of Parks Cons. We appreciate it all. Okay, next up, we wanted to announce our swag bag winner. We started on Twitter /X, whatever you want to call it. That's been a tradition for a long time of doing these swag bag giveaways. So we have a fun one that went up this week. Had a lot of people join. I think it was almost 600 of you or so joined. And so to announce the winner, and then we'll post it on social. It is Angela S. That's Queen Angelina 23. If on Twitter/X, Queen Angelina 23. So we'll post that on there, and we will also post our next giveaway bag probably before the next one of these shows that we do. As we will be doing it, we've had a few people ask, the prize drops again at the convention as well, leading up to the, probably a little bit maybe on the Monday, Tuesday, and more. And then if you're a Parks and Cons crew member, we haven't posted it yet in the Mighty Networks, but we will be doing the tour once again on preview night morning, and we'll have some fun swag for that as well. So we'll see you there.
Yeah, and if you're new to following along with us, we do prize drops during the show, which basically means we drop random stuff in random places and post them on social, and basically whoever finds it first gets to keep it. And there's some cool stuff, and Sean's already been gathering those things, and so follow along and keep your notifications on during Comic-Con so that you can get some free stuff. Lots of it is stuff that we've accumulated from previous shows and stuff, and it's just, we kind of like to pay it forward and share the different things that we've accumulated over time. So keep an eye out.
Yep. All right, next segment, our SDCC tips. We've been posting those on social media this year. I've been trying to add Instagram also to there. Those have been saving as many as we can over there as well. So a few of them we wanted to hit on and just kind of elaborate. One we had posted earlier today, you may have seen, but for the cosplayers out there, we found many. We do not cosplay. We've never worn a costume to a convention or anything like that. But one thing I've heard many of them talk about is how much they like being able to follow up after the con. And I always think about the post-con blues that we talk about. Many of us are familiar with that. I mean, I think particularly for San Diego Comic-Con, one of the saddest days of the year is Monday. In fact, we used to come down to the Gaslamp area to kind of watch things get taken down, and we're like, wait, this is way too depressing. We don't want to be around here Monday. But well, the tip was about having your handle easily there. I know for ourselves, we love it when cosplayers give us their card and we're able to tag them. But we've also had some just show us, like literally it'll be their lock screen on their phone. But it's really fun, the idea for them to be able to then on that Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday after the con to go through their feed and see all these photos of themselves in all different sorts of situations and mashup groups and things like that. So for the cosplayers out there having that, I'm always surprised how few, like as I said, we see a lot of cosplayers that do have that identifying info. But I would say that's like 1 out of 10 probably. Most don't have that, and maybe they don't want to follow up with that. They get enough, with professional photographers or whatever. But I always think if I was somebody that wore a costume to Comic-Con or any convention, I would love to go through and see what pictures people got of me in that costume, because it's just so cool to see what people come up with and how creative it is, and so many unique kind of combos of photo shoots and things like that. So that was a tip. That was for an on the floor tip. Then in prep leading up to the show, a couple tips. One of them being having a fail-safe kind of meeting location. I think that's really, really helpful. We do have obviously cell phones, and they're very reliable. I mean, I know at least in our case, we haven't had much signal issue at San Diego before. We've been quite fortunate in that. But at the same time, it's really nice to have something that we are able to, let's meet at the front of the Toddland booth if we get lost, if we come out in communication. Some people are not as good. Like for me, texting is kind of like more of like a walkie-talkie system. Other people are not as much that. And so I think, especially if you're somebody that maybe are with slow texters or things like that, it might make even more sense sometimes to have that kind of fail-safe location. And obviously, if you have any younger ones with you, particularly, teens and younger, it's really great to have something where you're able to kind of pinpoint a spot. And a lot of times that's maybe going to be away from the frenzy of the floor. It might be meeting outside by the Hall B sign or something like that, or meeting in front of Baja Rigs. But just having a location so it's easy to kind of know that and know where you're going to be, I think can be very helpful and go a long way.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously batteries die on phones, and who knows what happens. And sometimes systems go down. And so, yeah, having a backup fail safe is a good thing.
And then the last in that tip segment there for this week is the notion of really making sure to check your information. And I think this is one of those, like there's a handful of, like, if we had a Mount Rushmore of tips, or at least principles that kind of we operate on, is, we always stress San Diego Comic-Con is put on by a ton of people, and all conventions are, that do not do these jobs normally. They're people that work in different office positions. They're people that are volunteering. Very few people's jobs look the same, a week after San Diego Comic-Con is what they are. And so we're all dropped in this pressure-packed situation where people are short on time and wanting to do all these incredible experiences, and things change, a lot of things. And so we always, like, if we have something we want to do on Thursday, let's say it's a signing, we'll go on preview night and we'll ask usually 2 booth attendees at different times, so tomorrow, this thing, how's it going to work? And then compare it with someone else at the booth. But then the next day, first spot, we're going to go, maybe we have a couple, we're going to try and go with swag, but, pretty early in the day, it's going to be like, okay, just checking in. Is the signing yesterday? We were told this. And still sometimes it's going to change and not work. A lot of times booths change policies from day to day as well. So if there's something that works a certain way Thursday and they're going to do something every day of the con, it's good to check back with them again. At the end of the day, all that may be done and it still doesn't work and there's changes, but I just cannot recommend checking that information multiple times. Don't trust just social media in terms of what booths might put on social or in press releases, but really kind of go out there to the booth and try to see what's going on there. And I know we've had a lot of success with that over the years. And also some frustration with that. Of course, it's just part of Comic-Con. But again, being very nice to the employees, it's, a tip we stress as we get a little closer to the con, but it's like, these people are in tough spots, all of them. And so everybody wants to just kind of do their job, get through the day, not get yelled at, of course, have a good time with it. But things do change. So definitely double, triple, quadruple, however many times you need to check things, especially those things that are most important to you.
Yeah, definitely. If it's really important, you do everything you can, and we do it all the time where we try to better our odds at things. And in the end, if it doesn't work out, at least well, I tried and I did everything I could to make it happen, and whatever happened and it didn't, but at least that you gave it every effort you could. And so as frustrating as it is to whatever that is not happen, at least you tried, but more often than not, it will work out in some way. And so that's always gratifying, obviously.
100%. So next then, I guess we'll go back to if there's any questions that have popped in since, and then we'll get to our kind of go watch it and then start wrapping things up here. So any new questions popping in here?
Yeah. So Sylvia Davila asks any info about the possible Skybound offsite for the game?
No. Yeah, Skybound. Skybound is something actually we have heard some things about, but we can't talk about anything about Skybound right now. So we have to just leave that one alone to respect people that share information with us. So more to come on Skybound at a later date.
Okay, then Big Red Journey said, I got passes for all days of the con, but I probably won't be able to make all of them due to conflicts. If you had to pick 2 of the 4 days to go, which ones would you choose?
Well, I'd be interested in people in the chat, what they have to say to that as well. But I know for me, it would just depend as we got closer to the show of information. And I know at least for us, I feel like we don't really know what we're doing Saturday until Friday a lot of times. So it would be really tough. Like there's no way I could pick the 2 days now probably if I had to, because maybe like I'm just going to have to put these days in for missing work and I just have to pick 2 days. I think personally I'd like to come on like the Thursday and then the Saturday probably, because I'd want to be there to kind of start things off. And then Saturday is obviously it's a big day. I mean, every day is a big day at Comic-Con, but I think it's, a lot of people kind of really go all out, whether it's on the cosplay side, some of the activations, some of the talent, things like that. Sunday to me at Comic-Con is always a little sad as much as I love it, because it's wrapping up, and when 5 o'clock comes and everybody's tapping out one last time. So I think if I had to miss one day, it'd be Sunday, not because there's not amazing entertainment that day, but just because it always feels a little sad as things, and it feels like Saturday things are still like raging on a high note as you would leave and to miss that day. So I think if I was picking right now, for me it would be Thursday and Saturday would be my 2 days. But if you can wait, the closer you can wait, I think the better chance you'd have to knowing a lot of the offerings there.
Yeah, if there's obviously stuff that you're into, then that impacts. But yeah, if you have to make it earlier, I was initially thinking Friday and Saturday, but yeah, Thursday, being able to start off the show and getting a feel for things, and then having a better idea as it goes on, what you want to do. Yeah, probably Thursday and Saturday makes sense. But yeah, I was initially thinking Friday and Saturday. Let's see. Noel Gonzalez said, what about James Gunn DCU slate at SDCC?
I do think that we'll see James Gunn in DC. But I know there was the whole, what was it, on Threads or something, where they're like, what about Comic-Con? He's like, we're shooting. And it's like, I really think James Gunn is such a big comics fan, is big convention fan and stuff. All that being said, I'm still bitter that we didn't have like the James Gunns and the Kevin Feige's of the world do Comic-Con at home in 2020. Like, I still feel like Kevin Feige owed fans coming on that Comic-Con at home online thing and just telling like, here's my 5 favorite comic books or whatever. I think that would have meant a lot to people in 2020. And so I'll never forgive like the big celebrities that, you know, kind of just turned everything off in the fan community back in 2020. So I think he'll be there. I think it makes a lot of business sense. Creature Commandos coming out later in the year in December, ramping up for Superman. What better time to get that splash than this July? And I think you could spare probably taking a day or two off from shooting to come out here. So I really hope so. But, you know, I guess there was a little bit of ambiguity to that all. And we won't know till we know more, I guess.
Yep. Then Big Red Journeys wanted to clarify, he said, quick add-on disclaimer, the San Salvador is a replica of the 1542 Galeon ship, but it is very authentic in the way that it's built and designed, just with modern Coast Guard required safety.
Thank you so much. Hey, Farm Home Haunt, good to see you there. Manny, Night Bodega, good to see you. Lovin' Hello Kid. Good to see a lot of familiar faces and names in here. So thanks. Good to see you all.
Let's see. Windu 777 says they use walkie-talkies, works every year.
Excellent. Cool. Very cool.
Let's see. The San Diego Comic-Con unofficial blog said they do have an offsite, but all we know is what we posted.
There you go.
Was that for Skybound?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. Night Bodega asks, how does it feel celebrating 10 years? It's kind of crazy. I don't know. It's interesting because obviously it's been 10 years, but also it feels like it's been longer because we have been attending stuff before. But I don't know. It's kind of cool to have like this anniversary event and be able to like reflect back on things. And we're doing a lot of reflecting, and we've done a lot of really cool stuff over the last 10 years. A lot of stuff that I would have never thought to even think that we would experience or even knew were things and stuff. And so I'm very appreciative of the 10 years that we've had. And so to have this milestone coming up in the record books is a really cool thing.
Yeah.
It's really exciting.
Like so many things that went by really fast. But it also seems like it was forever ago that we started. So it's weird because it just depends on the day or like the topic of like, oh, that seems like it was so long ago. And then other things feel like they were just yesterday. So, but it's really cool. The thing I like most is that we've like been able to adapt and I feel like stay valuable in a world that's changed a lot, and especially covering parks and conventions and the way social media has changed. And we've built up we don't even like most of the social media platforms, but we built them all up to like good standings and stuff. And so I'm proud of the stuff we did, but it is weird. It's very weird. I love Pink Hello Kitty. I have a friend who wants to experience offsites. Do they still have experience without having SDCC tickets? Yeah, in most cases, I think it's pretty rare that a offsite requires badges. So many of them. I mean, it's usually pretty well communicated and stated if that's something that's required. Of course, anything that's official for Comic-Con, they do require badges for any of their activities, but I think that's pretty rare in general. And then what was the first SDCC you guys did? That's our last question of the day. Justin Cosplay again. So 2005, we drove down, bought our tickets at the door. The biggest hassle was finding parking because we had to park but it was like, but we just found parking blocks away, but it was still a hassle. But we got in line on a Saturday, bought tickets, was blown away that people like David Prowse were here, or Kenny Baker, Darth Vader, R2-D2, Peter Mayhew, Chewbacca. It just blew my mind that just random booths would have those guys there. There are people that I hadn't seen at conventions, although I grew up going to conventions, I hadn't seen them. And so it blew me away. And then I think, the first few years of San Diego Comic-Con, we'd come 1 or 2 days, and then it was eventually maybe we would enjoy it more because it felt so overwhelming. It was just one day for a few hours that we'd come and stuff, and then it always felt like there was more. And for me, I've discussed it before, I struggle with crowds and stuff, and so when we were coming down here, and then it was there's all this stuff going on, and we didn't know what we were missing, and there were these exclusive lines, and it's do we get in these lines? What are we missing and stuff? And I basically thought, well, maybe if we came a little longer and we took our time with things, and maybe we can enjoy it a little more, and it's not so overwhelming and stuff. And so
yeah, we started coming all the days, and then eventually we come like Monday to Monday.
Yep.
And so
yeah, I think we started that price 6 or 7, maybe longer ago, years ago, and that's been kind of the formula since. So, but yeah, it's been really interesting watching Comic-Con change over the years as well. And I mean, just conventions and going back to the 10-year question, just watching theme parks change, watching Halloween events change, watching conventions change, seeing a lot of conventions die, a lot of new ones come on board. It's been a really interesting decade for sure. And Comic-Con's been at the heart of all of it. I mean, the whole reason Parks and Cons started, the fact of anything existing, even before Parks and Cons, was all San Diego Comic-Con. So it's always kind of at our heart. So really appreciative of all of you that support from the San Diego Comic-Con community. And we know it's different than other communities that we have where it's like, these are the Disney people and these are the haunt people. And there's sometimes crossover and a lot of times there's not. But we do always appreciate all the Comic-Con people that follow along with us every year and make us part of your traditions. It's really, really appreciated. So, okay, segueing to the Go Watch It. So last week we talked about, we do have that 2023 playlist with a lot of videos there. I think it's that we had like 100 videos there. That was the year before. I forgot. Last year we only put up about 50, but still a lot of videos there that show kind of Comic-Con, but without having as many panels. Last year on our schedule, there's a little bit less there, but there's a lot, especially for new attendees that want to get a feel for Comic-Con. I feel like we do a pretty good job with that over there. As I said, we have the Vega Cafe video there that kind of talks about what that place is and how it's replaced Lolita's. For those that are interested, we have last week's live there. Of course, they're also on the podcast feed, this week's live. And then, as I mentioned earlier, some of the videos coming up. So we'll keep adding to that library and hope you can all check that out. And we're excited for the exhibit hall to come, map to come out and all those usual videos we do. I mean, I think the plan is to do everything we usually do that people seem to really like. Like, I don't think we're cutting anything out. Hopefully not. So, all right. So with that said, we'll go to the wrap up here again. Once again, we want to thank everybody that supports, whether you've bought tickets to our event, especially Parks and Cons crew members, those that support on Patreon throughout the year. It helps so much. I mean, I really can't tell you how much it helps. It is a huge importance, just so we thank you so much. If you've not already done so, please give a like to this video if you're watching live, or give us a nice review wherever it is you find it in podcast form, or if you're watching the replay, likes their work as well. You can follow along with us in real time at Parks and Cons, particularly for San Diego Comic-Con. X and Twitter is still best, but also Instagram. We use Instagram stories particularly almost equally there, so that is also I think pretty useful. Facebook, of course, Threads, TikTok, YouTube, as we said, lots of videos there. Wrapping up here from the San Diego Convention Center area, where hopefully FX builds an offsite pretty soon. Until next time, we'll see you in line somewhere.